Greetings, my name is Piero and welcome back to Neon Slice. So I've clearly run out of ideas for content, but no, I wanted to do something fun and maybe entertaining, and that is ranking every single Resident Evil game that I've personally experienced, from worst to best or best to worst. I don't know. I don't know how. We're gonna mix it up a little bit. So full disclosure, this is purely my opinion. This is not based on anyone else's opinion or anything that I've read. This is purely based on my experience, okay? So I hope you get entertained because that's the purpose of this entertainment, okay? So let's start with the very, very obvious. The worst Resident Evil game. In my opinion, it is Resident Evil 6. Now, let me give you some insight. So, I didn't play Resident Evil 6 on release date. Up until that point, I had played every single Resident Evil game on release date. So, that means on day one. But after 5, I kind of like stopped really caring because I was, not impressed. And I was doing other things, and also I was very young and I couldn't earn money. So I waited a few years until I got a computer, and during a summer sale on Steam, I bought it and experienced it with a friend. With multiple friends, actually, more than one friend. And every single time I played it, every single time I tried really hard to look over the awful things about it, and I tried to enjoy it, and I couldn't. I literally could not. Even as a co-op game, I could not enjoy Resident Evil 6. I just don't feel like it's a Resident Evil game. I feel like they took what people had enjoyed from 5 and try to turn it into like a multiplayer modern shooter. And I really don't. I mean, the fact that you can freaking, I don't know, you can like do a bunch of kicks and jumps, and that's just not, it's not very realistic to me. And also, even if it isn't, it doesn't have to be realistic. The whole series isn't realistic, but it's just, to me, it's just did not feel like Resident Evil at all. In fact, it felt like an insult because they were trying to even make references to RE2 and other games, like, hey, it's my first day on the job. And, the cop saying that during, you know, it's just, I could go on forever. But yeah, in my opinion, Resident Evil 6 is just really, really terrible. Even the story, even when you look at it from an outside perspective and you don't play and you watch somebody else play it, I think it's just very, very extremely mediocre. So I'm not gonna ramble anymore. So moving on, Umbrella Core, sorry, is another one. I just don't think Resident Evil should be multiplayer. That is all. Then moving on, what do we have here? I actually quite enjoy ReVerse. ReVerse, I don't know. I feel like ReVerse was everything they had done from multiplayer up until this point, but like they tried really hard to make it like RE2 remake and RE3, but like people fighting against each other. I don't know. I just feel like they tried really hard to get the things from the good remakes and try to make it a multiplayer, and I don't think they did anything good. I mean, it would have been better if they put all that effort into RE Village Mercenaries, in my opinion. All right, moving on. I did not play Gaiden, but I've heard good things about it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's move on. Okay, so Resident Evil Zero. Okay, this might be a bit controversial. Resident Evil Zero. I really, really enjoy the graphics. I love Rebecca. To some people, she's annoying, but I just couldn't get into Resident Evil Zero. I mean, I don't think, I don't think the. Don't get me wrong. I love the lack of resources. I love a challenge, but in Resident Evil Zero, the lack of the item box was kind of like a chore more than a challenge. It was just annoying, and the fact that it was two-player, it was two-player solo. I just didn't like that. That's all I'm gonna say because I didn't finish the game. But yeah, I love the graphics, the story, but I just couldn't get into the game. Then we have Resident Evil Revelations. Resident Evil Revelations was just a very mediocre game. I don't think it deserves to be higher than a C. Resident Evil Revelations 2, I think, was slightly better, but maybe I'm biased because I love Claire. But yeah, it was all right. I think it's very goofy, and I think they overdid the jokes. All right, so moving on, we have a Resident Evil 1. Of course, Resident Evil 1 is going to be an S tier. Sorry, that's not Resident Evil 1. The original Resident Evil 1 is going to be an S tier because I mean it's the first game, right? Everything should be like the first game. I think this is the great formula, and this is how it should be. You know, uh, every Resident Evil game should have the basics of this game. So I'm gonna put the remake in A just because I feel like you gotta honor the original, right? We can't have both up there. So I think actually Resident Evil Remake. The only complaint actually that I have with Remake is that the Crimson Heads. The Crimson Heads. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're not that difficult to deal with. If you're smart, you can just burn them, right? You most of the time you don't even get to deal with them. But I just don't think it's good to change story and just for gameplay in a remake. But hey, in that case, that's how I feel. Resistance, I don't care about that game. It's really terrible. The Mercenaries 3D, I didn't play. I think I only played it once on my nephew's 3DS. Well, it's Mercenaries, right? So we gotta give it like, let's just give it a C. Let's just give it a C. I like the Mercenaries. Actually, let's just put it on B because I like the Mercenaries, and I think that's just Resident Evil 5, right? With Mercenaries, so just portable. Then we have, speaking of Resident Evil 5, I'm just gonna put Resident Evil 5 right next to Mercenaries because I think it's just the same. You know, it's a great co-op game. It's very fun to play with friends, but I don't think it's a good Resident Evil game. Um, and since we're on the topic, we're gonna put Resident Evil 4 up here. So Resident Evil 4, I mean, it's wonderful. It's a great way to modernize the original formula, and this was like the turning point for Resident Evil. This is where they started doing third-person mode, and they tried doing something new, and they were starting to veer off more towards the action uh, side, which I didn't mind that much because the game was so much fun. But if there's anything to blame for anything that happened after this game, well, it's all because of this game, Resident Evil 4, because everybody loved Resident Evil 4 so much, so Capcom made more action Resident Evil games. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. I think it could be better for sure, and I can't wait for the remake. All right, next up we have Code Veronica. Let's just get this out of the way. Code Veronica, absolute wonderful game. It could be better for sure, and I think this game desperately needs a remake because it has so much potential, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful game. It was just poorly executed, I think, in some parts back then, but they were limited. But yeah, I absolutely love Claire. This is the best Claire design ever. This is when I think of Claire, I imagine this face, and this is amazing. Except for the mom jeans, that's kind of dumb. So, since we're on the topic of OGs, let's say Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 3 has so many memories. I tear up every time I think about the original Resident Evil 3. This is where it started for me. Like, this is the first Resident Evil game that I watched my brother play back in the 90s. I just, it's just great. But playing it now as an adult, like 20 plus years later, I think I still prefer RE2. So speaking of RE2, let's put RE2 up there. Original RE2. I think this is what every classic Resident Evil game should be like. Wonderful, amazing. Nothing. There's nothing I would change about RE2. And as always, I love Claire, I love Leon, I love Ada, I love Sherry. Like, all of those characters to me are just, when I think of Resident Evil, that's what I think about. And since we're on the topic, RE2 Remake to me is the best Resident Evil of all time. I think this is actually, okay, the best modern Resident Evil of all time. I think this is how every modern Resident Evil should be, and I'm so glad that Resident Evil 4 is going to be very similar to RE2 Remake. And I think everybody in their life should experience this game. Since we're on the topic of remakes, let's talk about RE3 Remake. A lot of people dislike this game, and I am inclined to not agree. I'm gonna put it on B because I just don't know. I like Resident Evil 3 Remake. I just feel like they had their B team working on it. You know, I feel like they took a preset from RE2 and they gave it to their B team, their interns, and maybe it was led by an experienced person that had worked on Resident Evil games before. But I do feel like, I don't know, it was either rushed or it was done by a separate team, because I feel like Resident Evil 3 remake could have been a lot better if it had been done almost exactly like RE2. Just have the clock tower instead of the stupid lab. I hate the lab. And but overall I think it's a great remake. I think gameplay wise is wonderful. I think it's amazing. The music is great. I didn't even mind Mega Nemesis at the end, but I thought fighting Nemesis in an arena was fucking stupid, to be honest. But yeah. So that now that we got all of the mainstream ones out of the way, let's talk about RE7. I'm gonna have to put RE7 on A. It's a very generous A because I don't think RE7 is a top game, but I gotta give credit where it's due. Resident Evil 7 was their return to horror, return to the Residence type of games. We're back into a house, we're back in, doing puzzles. I think it's an amazing and wonderful game, wonderful way, of going back to the roots of Resident Evil while still making it, a good, being new. Since we're on the Ethan Winter story, I am actually going to put RE Village. This might be a bit controversial if I do this. I just, it's hard to do this because it's such a prominent thing on my channel, but I don't know. It just reminds me of, I don't know. It feels like RE4, right? It feels like RE4, but like with RE7 combined. But like it feels like the castle should have been longer. It should have had more sections. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think Resident Evil just needs to be slower paced to go back to its roots. Like the reason why original Resident Evil games were scarier was because of the 5 second long door sequences, and I absolutely love that. So I don't know. I feel like the only thing I would change in Village is make it longer, make it more about the wonderful characters that they have, wonderful voice acting, immaculate casting. They couldn't have gotten better people to work on it. All right, so moving on, I'm actually going to, let's see. So I played this game recently. I don't think it's necessarily good, but it's not bad either. I just don't like on rail shooters that much. They're fun though. Resident Evil Survivor, I don't know, man. I think it's cool, but I just thought it was kind of weird. But I was a child when I played it, and I was very scared of the weird enemies. I don't know what were those enemies? Were they people in suits? Like I don't even know what this is. Oh, Resident Evil Dead Aim. Oh, I've never played that. What is this? Resident Evil. Is that a game? Is that the movie? Is that the movie? Oh, Outbreak. I didn't play Outbreak. So I can't judge. So this is I didn't play that one either. I didn't play Raccoons. Okay, I did watch a let's play of this, I think a very long time ago, so I'm just gonna put it on D because I don't think this game's good. I just think they could have done much better. Um, I used to love the idea of seeing the umbrella side of things for Raccoon City, and the way they did this game, from what I've seen, was kind of a wasted opportunity because they once again try to make it multiplayer, and that ruins everything. But yeah, so that's what my list is gonna look like. That's my tier list of the best Resident Evil games and the worst. Let me know if you agree. Of course, you you will disagree with some of these, but that's perfectly okay. But at the end of the day, I love this game. I love this franchise, except the movies, and I can't wait to play more. Stay tuned, and I'll be playing a lot more games coming. Hopefully, some streams too. So stay tuned, subscribe, hit the bell, comment down below, like, so I know how many people are watching this and enjoying this. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.